Welcome to our live stream. And as I mentioned in my announcement, we're not going to spend very long. We're just going to get right into it. The Hunger Games. We're going to start the movie. And in case you don't know, it's 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 45 seconds. That's only the Netflix version. If you don't have Netflix, hopefully you have a DVD copy. I don't know what other platforms. I didn't look that up. It might be on other platforms. When I get down to zero, everyone push play. Three, two, one, zero. Okay. We are starting 8 minutes late. 7:08. Wow. That's fine. 8 minutes into the live stream. 7 minutes on Facebook. Seven. Yeah. Okay. So these tributes shall be delivered to the custody of the Capitol and then public arena where they will fight to the death. Henceforth, the Hunger Games. Sorry, I was not reading the title cards. I'm sorry. Basically what it was saying is that the Hunger Games takes place in North America in the ancient ruins of North America where Panem is on top. All the districts rebelled, and because of this rebellion, the consequence of that was to do the Hunger Games every year. One man, young woman must fight to the death. Two people from each district, and that's that's the sum of it. I hope that makes sense. You'll blah blah blah. I can't. Seneca Crane was the one who just talked with Caesar Flickerman. The guy with the blue hair was Caesar Flippin. I cannot say his name. Caesar. I'll just say Caesar. Caesar was the guy in the blue hair, right? And then Flickerman, who doesn't get referenced until the second book. So this movie kind of spoils the second book if you've only read the first. So it's kind of okay, so while we're watching this movie, I mentioned I wasn't just gonna talk what was going on the whole time. So while Prim and Katniss Everdeen are just singing to each other right now, I'm gonna let me tell you how I came across Hunger Games. Okay, I had this in my introduction video yesterday, but then I thought this could be saved for the movie, so I cut it out. And it feels like I'm repeating myself, but technically I'm not because you guys didn't hear it. I cut it out of the video yesterday. Um, So now you're going to hear the story. Um, so yes, I have read the first book. I have read Sunrise of the Reaping. No, I have not read the second book except for the first three chapters. And no, I have not read the third or Songbirds and Snakes. I'm a lazy reader. I'm not much a fan of reading. I prefer watching it rather than reading it. So because of this, I've seen all the movies. Um, Here's how it happened. So you're in high school, and you take these reading classes, right? It's part of learning English, science, and math. Those are the main subjects you have to learn. There's the curricular activities like art. I was a theater kid, so I did a lot of theater in junior high and high school. But anyway, because you have to take reading classes, and stuff, right? Um, those are required for graduating high school. Um, my language arts teacher in high school, I had it. I was slow in reading and I was falling behind. So because of this, I had to take. A lot of people my senior year didn't have to take reading, but I had to. So I was still taking language arts my senior year. Um, some people, they get so far ahead in their education they don't have to do much of the main subjects during senior year, but I had to. I just had to do math and English. I was really well in science. So I didn't have to do science my senior year. But anyway, because I was doing language arts, sometimes our school assignments would be art for the term or semester would be to read a book. We read some chapters together as a class, and then you probably know what this was like. And some of the chapters were required to read at home for homework, right? And then sometimes you do a book report on a book. Sometimes you're not reading the book as a class, but you're doing it, you're just picking a book and doing a book report on it. Other times when you are reading the book as a class, sometimes you do assignments that go along with the book. to make sure you're paying attention. Sometimes you do tests to make sure you're passing, right? So anyway, Gal interrupted me. What are you gonna do with that when you kill it? My instincts were telling me he was talking to me, but no, obviously not. It's a movie. Talking to Katniss. But anyway, so here we are in high school, and I've been through many book series before, and I could honestly tell you I don't remember them at all through seventh and senior year, all the way. Ever since I've been reading books, right, for class, only for class. I don't do it for choice or for free time. Not a book reader, but anyway, I would forget, the plot of the story, because I would be like, this was never interesting to me. Like I wouldn't forget. Once I passed the final test and we moved on to the next semester and the next book, I'd be like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna come back to that. Let's see. Some books I do remember is How to Kill a Mockingbird, The Outsider, which was a pretty violent book. I've seen the movies and the books for those things. I don't know the title of this book, but there was this story about families in, like, I don't know if it was China or some. It was not in North America, but it's where you could only have two children. It was against the law to have more than two children. There was this one family that had a third child, but they hid him in the basement so that they wouldn't get in trouble, and he wasn't allowed to be seen in public. So anyway, he would always hide, and the mom would sneak in bread and yada yada yada. And so anyway, the boy ends up like escaping from home and finding some friends and finding other third childs. And there's this party that he goes to that has all third and fourth childs in it. Um, and so anyway, they all get in trouble, and the main character is the only one who gets away. And she has to see her. She gets very close with this girl, and she ends up being killed. And anyway, he ends up saving his life. I looked it up. There's like 8 books in the series. His life continues in like a boarding school, a private boarding school away from the public. And I don't know if he ends up bringing an end to this or if he gets caught or killed himself, or maybe one of his older brothers dies so that way he can exist. I don't know. But anyway, it was an interesting book. I just don't remember what the title is, but I remember what it was about. That was the last book. That was the last book I remember from the beginning of my senior year. And then finally, the second semester starts. It's spring. I'm just a semester away from graduation. And our book for that semester was The Hunger Games, which is the one book that stuck with me. So out of all the books that I could remember or don't remember, um, you know, I never went back to watch the movie again after we saw it as a class. I never went back to read them, right? But Hunger Games, I did. We read the Hunger Games. COVID happened. We had to read it at home because we couldn't watch the movie as a class either. We were left to watch it on our own. So I did on my 18th birthday in May, and I thought it was so good I wanted to watch the sequels. Well, apparently not with if The Outsider had a sequel, or How to Kill a Mockingbird, or that one about not having 3 children had, it obviously had sequels. It had 8 books, I remember. But anyway, even to this day, I don't want to go back and reread those or watch the movies of those, you know. But you know, I didn't want to, I didn't feel like continuing in that show in those series. Is I wasn't really invested in the things I read in school. But then finally, right before I graduated, Hunger Games changed me and got me interested to watch the rest of the movies. Again, I didn't go back for the books because I was a lazy reader. I was like, I'll just spoil myself with the movies. That'll save me a lot of reading time. I know it's better to watch the book before the movie, and I do agree that the books are better than the movie. It's just because I don't like reading and I prefer just watching things visually with my eyes. Um, I just, anyway. Yes, I am not. It's not that I don't like books. I just don't like reading in general. I feel it feels like a lot of work. Not that I'm a bad enough slow reader that it's very hard to read. No, I read pretty easily, but and like see, I'm over talking so much. I'm not even. I'm not even. We're not even discussing what's actually happening in Hunger Games right now. I'm just explaining. I mean, how my dislike on just reading a book. Not because I don't like what the book's about, but anyway, it just even the Hunger Games just never got me back into reading the sequels. But I like the Hunger Games was the only book series that I liked enough to watch the rest of the movies and then just get the other books to put on my shelf, not to really read them. So I didn't get the books because I was prepared to service LDS mission after I graduated high school. If I would have been introduced to the Hunger Games a lot sooner, I would have gotten the books a lot sooner. But because I was prepared to go on a mission, I really wanted to make sure I was focused on serving the Lord. So I didn't buy the books, but I did rent the movies on demand and watch the rest of the movies in 2020. And then I went on my mission. It came back. Um, Played some Hunger Games Roblox simulators, which are pretty fun. Let me tell you, out of 24 people, I keep dying. My best bet was about 4, 3, and 2. I might have been second to last person before, but I don't. I know for a fact that I never won an actual Hunger Games. I don't. I'm not good at survival skills. I guess at least in the video games world. In real life, would I survive the Hunger Games? I don't know. I am not. I really love bow and arrows, but I'm not as good as Katniss. I have dealt with that kind of a stuff growing up, but I don't have good target practice. If if a tribute is up close, I could probably hit them, but if they're far away, I might miss. Like I'm not very good. I'm barely decent. So not as good as Katniss. Like I said, I'm only half, maybe a quarter as good as Katniss. So maybe not a bow and arrow. I've held a knife, but never really used it because I'm not a killer, right? So I don't know. Um, I'm not good at climbing trees. So in Katniss's 74th arena, I am a good swimmer though. So I think the quarter quell would be great. But Katniss in the arena, um arena. Sorry, I'm expecting a message from somebody, so that's why I need to have my phone out. But it's kind of important. But anyway, um, the arena. Let me see. Oh yeah, so as far as being in the trees go, I may be a good swimmer. I may avoid tributes in the water, but not on trees. Remember how Katniss had to climb the trees to avoid Gale? I couldn't climb the trees. So if they threw a fire at me and they chased me all the way to the career tributes, I'd be in trouble. I'd have to run for my life because I'm not good at climbing trees, and therefore I don't think I would make it to the end of the games because I can't climb up trees like Katniss. I wouldn't be able to tell what's poison and what's not. So as far as food goes, not great. I could find water. I guess I'm good in finding water, swimming. Probably picking allies because I can't survive alone. Would probably be my best bet. Um, no, I do not think this. No, I do not think killing is a great idea. So yes, you're right. I would not want to be in the games. But if I had to be, and I had to try to win and not try to kill myself, because I met a YouTuber online who said she'd just try to kill herself right away to save her all the trauma. Um, I don't know. I have a goal of living to be 100. I don't care if I'm forced to fight to the death. I want to live to be 100. So I'd be fighting to stay alive, no matter, even if after the games, um, there's no happy ending. If they Capital continues to torture me after the games, so be it. I'd rather be tortured than die before I'm 100. Um, let's see. It's on its way. Our carrier has your order and will arrive in around 20 minutes. So, yes, I'm ordering food, so I gotta make sure, um, I know when that's gonna be delivered. It's gonna be delivered sometime during this stream, but I have someone else in my house that can go get it, so anyway, I'm gonna send something, hang on. Sorry, guys. 20 minutes. Anyway, um, what was I saying? Primrose Everdeen. I had to be quiet as she said that. Um, Obviously, if we were in the movie, I wouldn't be talking right now because this is kind of, it's kind of rude. It's kind of a sad moment to be picked and reaped. Um, so what was I saying? The story of how, oh yeah, of how I came across the Hunger Games. We were just talking about that. Um, I played Hunger Games Simulator. Um, yes, I've been trying even till this day trying to win. But every time I join the Roblox simulator, every 24 of those Roblox players are better than me for some reason. I mean, I've been better. Gained a lot of strength and learning how to fight in a digital game. Like I said, in real life, I don't think I would survive. I can only find water and swim. That's it. I'm not good at finding food. I'm not good at climbing trees. I don't know if I would be good at combat. I could barely even use an arrow. Man, yeah, I would die. Maybe not right away. I'm smart enough to avoid the bloodbath. I think I'd be good enough to make it far into the games, but like I said in the digital version, not all the way to the end. If the only times I got into the end was because of luck. Because sometimes like I'd play the simulator and people would not go after me, they would focus on going after other people. Sometimes I would enjoy alliances and then leave before they betrayed me. Um, but that only got me so far, and my luck didn't allow me to win. I do remember at least getting to fourth place before, but I'm not sure if I ever got to out of the years I played this simulator. I don't know if I got third or second. I just know I never got first. So if I got second, then the guy who won over me killed me last. So anyway, so I've gotten better. I don't play often, very often too. So that's why 5 years after playing that game, I haven't won. But anyway, besides the Roblox simulator, I came home from my mission in September 2023, and the reason why my mission was so long was because I was expecting to leave my mission after I graduated in 2020, but after I turned in my papers, I ended up having to wait all the way till March, so of the next year. So I mean, that whole time, I guess I could have got the books after all, but I didn't. And then I had it. I was diagnosed with epilepsy halfway through my mission and was sent home. And then I did another mission from the summer of 2022 to 2023. And then finally, I got extended and finished in the fall of 2023. Just 2 months before Songbirds and Snakes came out. I didn't have any money and I was in the middle of finding a job. Did not get hired till Christmas. So was broke till Christmas. Luckily, I wasn't homeless because I had parents to shelter me in until I got on my feet, luckily. Um, but, like, during that time, I obviously couldn't afford to buy a Hunger Games novel. So, I saw the movie in theaters because someone was willing to pay for my ticket, but, like, I had to see the prequel without the book. Same goes with the other original movies. The original trilogy with the Mockingjay and Catching Fire. I told you I was too lazy to read the book. I watched the movie first when I probably should have read the book. I'm sorry. Songbirds and Snakes was an exception though because you have to understand my situation. I didn't want to wait, so I watched the movie instead of read the book. But then for Christmas of 2024, so a whole year later, that was 2023, a whole year later, after I started my job on Christmas 2023, a whole year later, I was stabilized for 12 months, right? Had plenty of money. I finally got the books for Christmas. I didn't have to pay for them because they were a Christmas gift. The only reason why I didn't buy them right away as soon as I had money was because I wasn't thinking of the Hunger Games at the time. As you know, I was really Back to the Future fan up until the 40th anniversary, so I was focused on that. And then I got the books at the end of 2024, and um I say even though I got the books, like I said, I didn't read them. I just put them on the shelf to look at. Sorry, but again, at least I've seen all the movies, right? And then so now you know how I came into to the Hunger Games. But then 2025 comes around. Sunrise of the Reaping comes out. But anyway, I forget to buy the book because I'm so focused on my Once Upon a Time marathon that I started. And then finally, I realize I haven't read the book yet. I get the book in July after the 4th. I really wish I got it back in March when it was released. But after the 4th, and when I found out Haymitch's birthday was Reaping Day, I was like, dang it! I could have done something Hunger Games related to celebrate. But I didn't read the book until the end of July, so I missed it. So I'm like, well, I may not be able to celebrate Haymitch's birthday on the 2025, but I can always do it in 2026. Um, my battery's almost dead, so I'm gonna plug in my laptop. So anyway, I was a lazy, lazy, lazy. Um, yeah, again, couldn't find myself to reading. I could get I should just get the audiobook and listen to it at this point, right? I've been asking that. It's and I'm selfish. I'm selfish. I could just use my own money to buy the audiobooks. But like or just order or get the audio just on my phone, right? And there are people who break copyright laws and release readings of the chapter on YouTube anyway. So there's that. But I don't know, life as soon as I start college and job and stuff, life just got too busy, and I was more defaulted into what I was as a child, which meant, if I had free time, I'd watch a movie instead of read a book. So, anyway, just never got around to reading books, right? But anyway, summer happens. I do get Sunrise of the Reaping. My family goes on vacation. When normally we do a lot of family activities on vacation, this was more of a relaxed, no activity vacation. So it got pretty boring. There wasn't a lot to do. We went to Midway, Utah, and there was not a lot to do there. So I finally got into reading Sunrise of the Reaping with my I got the audio version for my birthday. Someone got me the audio version, but they didn't give me the physical copy to follow along. Uh, so so again, couldn't I could listen to it, but like, look, I'm not completely lazy. I would at least want to have a book to follow along. I just don't want to read. Uh, so anyway, since I didn't get the book till after the fourth, um, finally I read the book, got the book, went on vacation, read the whole thing, all the way through the epilogue, and first time I ever cried reading a book. Prim's death doesn't affect me whatsoever, but definitely Haymitch is Lenore Dove and everything else. Anyway, and Sid and his mama, anyway, die in the fire. Spoilers here. Anyway, now that every time when I talk about it, it's not as it's not taking me as emotional as it did the first time I read it. But anyway, that was probably the one time I cried. And it was sad. After I finished that book, came home, put it on my shelf, again, focused on the Once Upon a Time marathon, and then that lasted all the way till 2026, and finally, it was last June that we finished the series, right? I was like, "Well, the movie of Sunrise: The Reaping comes out this year." So I'm like, let's do a Hunger Games marathon." And I was so exhausted after doing the Once Upon a Time publicly that I didn't feel like making Hunger Games a public marathon until I realized, maybe I don't have to read the books online because that I'm gonna follow copyright laws. And if you want to read the Hunger Games, buy your own copy. Don't listen to me. But anyway, other I know just because see here's the conclusion I came with it because other people on YouTube are doing it doesn't mean I should. So no, where I'm just I decided because of how exhausted I am and because I want to be a good citizen here, not get in trouble. I've already gotten in trouble by putting copyright content on my channel. Luckily, they haven't gave me copyright strikes, so I haven't done anything really legal. But anyway, point is, I don't want to risk that with the Hunger Games. I'm okay if it's Once Upon a Time, but not the Hunger Games. I want to keep my channel safe. Hunger Games has definitely more copyright strikes. I feel like than Once Upon a Time. So what's funny is that I screen record Once Upon a Time trailers and I put them on my YouTube channel. I got away with it without copywriting. But when I did the same thing for Hunger Games, I got a copyright, not a copyright strike, but copyright warning. So I know for a fact that they're way more strict on the Hunger Games than they are on Once Upon a Time. So, with that said, I'm not going to read the book. I know people do reading logs where they don't read the book, but they give you updates on where they're at. I'm not going to do that. I decided that the book marathon should be private, but I'm always a fan of like when I have to read a book in language arts class. If I have to read a book, you watch the movie afterwards. So the idea of like reading the first book, then watching the first movie, which we're doing right now, reading the second book, watching the second movie, which we'll do in a few weeks. Anyway, I figured you guys could be part of the movie experience because I can easily do that. See how I'm giving commentary? I'm talking right now as we're watching the movie. Um, I can't really give you my thoughts while reading at the same time. I'd have to stop if I wanted to talk to you. At least in this case, I don't have to pause the movie. We keep it playing while I'm talking. But I mean, I guess I could play the audio version and then talk while the audio's playing, but then you can't hear what's going on. And so anyway, at least with I guess you could turn the audio up where it's louder than my voice, but no, no. when it comes to commentary, it's supposed to be for people who've seen the movie and they're not here to watch the movie. They're here to hear my thoughts on it and stuff. And so I'm like thinking, well, you can't really do that with a book. So maybe with a movie, if I'm over talking your copy of the movie and you can't hear what's going on, first of all, sorry for that. But at least you could watch it and see what's going on. You know what's going on without the characters talking. Versus in the book, you kind of need the reader to talk because the book doesn't visualize like a movie does. So anyway, that's obvious, duh, right? That I'm talking about this, why I'm not doing the book marathon with you guys. That's private, but we could do the movies together. And it's not like Once Upon a Time that we do every single week. We could do, this will be every 3 weeks or so. So anyway, so not exactly once a month, but almost once a month. So anyway, that wraps up my story. Um, so I started the marathon on July 20th, exactly 4 months before the movie comes out on November 20th. And I can read a book. I'm a good enough reader that I could probably read the whole Hunger Games in less than a week. Maybe if I wasn't busy with college and a job, I could do it in a couple days. But anyway, because I'm not a fan of reading, I'm more of a fan of movies. Um, doesn't mean I'm saying the movie's better than the book. Book's better, but you know what I mean. As far as me being a stupid lazy bum. At least with a movie, I'm just like, oh, instead of going blah 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 on a book. In this case, I am kind of talking though. It does feel like reading because I'm giving commentary. But when I watch a movie privately and I'm not live streaming it, I don't talk. I go like, it's good to relax. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself at this point. But but yeah, we started the marathon. Now it's 3 weeks since the 20th of July, and well, we're moving into the second book after tonight. So anyway, our next live stream will be in 3 weeks for Hunger Games Catching Fire. And we'll continue doing the other movies as we go along. But anyway. Oh, private, public, private, public. How long have I been talking? I've been talking for a full on 26 minutes. That's a long time to talk about how I fell in love with the movie. I'm so invested in it though, as you can tell. I'm in like all the details of how I got into it. I heard about the auditions for Sunrise of the Reaping, and they were kind of open auditions. I kind of wish I did a talent so I could be in the film. That would have been cool because I was an actor, a theater actor, but I'd love to be on film for once. That was a dream when I was 12 to be in a movie, but that hasn't happened yet. No one has helped me become my own celebrity. Hey, we're back to Caesar and Caesar Flickerman and what's his name? It left me. I said it before. Seneca Crane. We're back. They were at the beginning of the movie and then they jumped back in. Again, he usually doesn't show up till the second one. But Seneca Crane. But Seneca Payne. What am I saying? I can't say their names. Oh, food should be here any second. So what has happened while I was talking about how I got into the Hunger Games and how I'm starting this marathon, which should last all the way until the movie comes out. Um, at least with me doing this book marathon privately, I will finally say I have read all the books by the time the movie comes out. Oh, I know what I was saying before. So I could read the books in a couple days, but I want to stretch out the marathon and go all the way until the movie comes out. So anyway, I was lost in thought. There was something I wanted to say about this, and before we moved on, and now I remembered. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, I want to purposely read the Hunger Games so slow that we don't finish the series till the movie comes out. And so again, you probably don't want to read and blog for me because then otherwise it's not coming out until the movie comes out. It would take 4 minutes to make that video. I mean 4 months to make that video. 4 minutes, no. Anyway, but yeah, since I got the final Sunrise of the Reaping book over the past year, besides being focused on Once Upon a Time, I did get a few other things to show my fandom of the Hunger Games. I got all the movies on DVD, I got the digital code, and got some Mockingjay pins. It's not too much. I thought about getting the Funko Pops too. I told you in my Once Upon a Time marathon I was going to try to get all the Once Upon a Time Funkos and then show them to you guys at the very end of that marathon. That never happened. There's still one that I'm trying to get. There's a specific Regina with the heart character that I'm trying to get, but maybe for the 15th anniversary this year, we'll do a Once Upon a Time live stream in October for the 15th anniversary. I know it's kind of poor timing now that we're in the Hunger Games, but um, I might show that collection if I can get the last one. But as far as Hunger Games goes, there's 14 Once Upon a Time Funkos, but in the Hunger Games, there's only 7. Those are easy to collect. So I might get I don't know, but maybe I could get the Hunger Game Funkos and then show those to you guys as well when the movie comes out. We will not be reacting to Sunrise of the Reaping though, because I don't think they let you give commentary in the movie theater. It's usually quiet. So we have to wait until it comes on streaming. But I'm thinking instead of waiting till like March or something, because it takes place on the 4th of July, now that we know Hunger Games is on the 4th, including this movie right now, the 74th and 75th games are on the 4th, right? Lucy Gray's games were on the 4th. Now that we know that Hunger Games takes place on the 4th, it'd be more nostalgic. Well, it's okay that these movies are not on the 4th because they didn't establish it was July 4th. But the movie that does establish that Reaping Day's on July 4th, I think that's better served to react to on July 4th. So we will be reacting to Sunrise of the Reaping next year on July 4th because I think that'd be better than just reacting to it in like March. I would want to react to it in November, but I can't because you can only watch it in theaters. But by the time 2027 rolls around and it comes on streaming services, I mean, like, I don't feel right. It doesn't feel right to react to Hunger Games in the spring. Hunger Games is more of a summer or fall show. It's not a winter or spring show. So I would, I'm saving it for next year. If you're wondering, because remember how I couldn't celebrate Reaping Day in 2025 because I read the book a few weeks later, I just barely met, just like Back to the Future. Remember, I told you the whole story of how I got into Back to the Future. It was right after October 21st, 2015. I had just barely missed the day, that Doc and Marty arrived, and I'm like thinking if only I was introduced slightly sooner, right? Same goes with Hunger Games. I was introduced to it a lot sooner, but there was no indication from the books or movies that the 4th of July was Reaping Day until Sunrise of the Reaping came out, and I guess I should have got right into it when the book came out. But I had money. That's because I didn't have a job in 2023 when Songbirds and Snakes came out, but I did have a job in 2025, and I had the money. I could have bought it, but it's okay. It's okay. I was really into my Once Upon a Time marathon, so can't argue with that. But anyway, it's funny how Hunger Games is a movie series like Back to the Future, and Back to the Future also has a novel series, but it's not popular because it was a movie first, and the movie is better than the book in that case. But it's a book adaptation of the movie for Back to the Future. So anyway, Back to the Future is like the opposite of Hunger Games, I guess, because Hunger Games was a book series, and it's the movie that's being adapted. But anyway, um, but one thing they have in common, Back to the Future and Hunger Games, is that I was introduced. As far as knowing that Hunger Games takes place on the 4th and knowing about October 21st, I was just introduced to the date way too late. I was introduced to Back to the Future in general, just right after the 21st, and I regret that. I would, if I could go back, I would change it to where I watched it sooner. But with Hunger Games, it's not that I wasn't introduced to it; it's I didn't know it took place on the 4th till anyway. But all right, besides the point. 2026 comes around, and guess what I did for the 4th? This year. I did Reaping Day for my family. I decided to choose one boy and one girl in my family to fight to the death between the ages 12 to 18. I have many cousins who are within that age range, so they could fight to the death. I ended up choosing 2 cousins that were siblings, and that was not intentional. So I told my uncle of that family, I was like, sorry, 2 of your 3 children are gonna die. I was joking, but that was my mom's side. The cousins and family I have on my dad. Well, I have a disabled uh cousin who's in a wheelchair, and he has Down syndrome. Anyway, it was kind of inappropriate when I tried doing this, but I tried to follow the rules of the games. He had to be in the reaping bowl. I end up, and again, no one bought Tessera, so I just put based on their age. Because anyway, I asked everyone to pretend if they wanted to buy Tessera or not, and they said no. So everyone who was 12 was put in once. Everyone who was 18 was put in seven, and Ryan was only 14. So his name was only in there three times, and somehow I pulled his name out. And then I ended up pulling out my sister. So yes, my sister and my cousin Ryan have to fight to the death. Now my aunt, the mother of the child, was like trying to volunteer in his place. And he's like, you have to be between 12 and 18. So I'm sorry, no. But and no one else wanted to volunteer. And I asked Braden, my brother, my only brother, who could replace, on my dad's side, we don't have a lot of cousins or people between the ages 12 to 18. And for my brother, for the boys, there was only Braden, Ryan, and another cousin of mine. There was only three people in there, and neither of my other cousin or brother wanted to volunteer for Ryan's place. So, and I'm afraid he had to fight to the death. But I put everyone in a simulator. Um, so I didn't have 24 people, but I put the two cousins from my mom's side plus my sister and my cousin Ryan on my dad's side. I put four people in to fight to the death, and you're not going to believe who won in the simulator. Ryan did. The disabled kid. Now the simulator doesn't know that he is disabled and he has what is it called, Down syndrome. It doesn't depict that. It just thinks everyone is equally powerful and decides who wins. I can't control what the internet says, but it chose Ryan and he won. So maybe in real life, if Ryan fought to the games, maybe and fought to the death in the games. Maybe let's say Malin took Ryan and hid him to find shelter and locked him inside a cave or tree so that and protected and killed the other tributes that tried to kill him. Anyway, say my sister Malin protected him and he was fortunate enough to survive to the end. Let's say Malin got killed, but no one knew Ryan was there. Let's say some other tribute, maybe my other cousin who came by and decided to feed him, or maybe all because there's only four and not 24. Maybe all of them decided they didn't want to kill Ryan because of his disability. I think I would understand that. They would all just want to kill each themselves so that Ryan could win. In this scenario, though, I was thinking, well, what if there was still 24 people and there was just people from other families, right? I still think that, if you see a guy in a wheelchair and he has Down syndrome, you probably wouldn't want him to die. Yeah, it would be an easy kill, but it's almost not fair. You'd probably have the heart of a Katniss. If you're like a career tribute, then that's not good. You probably would try to kill him. But if you have any soul in you, like Katniss does with Rue, you'd probably try to help them make it to the end. So since the simulator said Ryan was the winner, I was just making up a story to how he would win. Um, and realistically, I know the simulator gives you a story, the Hunger Games simulator online, but anyway, it's not proven true at all because it doesn't know that Ryan's anyway. So anyway, I've made up a story that would make it possible for him to win, and without having to fight or find food or anything. Like if someone just brought it for him and took care of him right inside a cave where no one could see him. Anyway, that's how he would win. So anyway, that's what I did. I put my own family into the arena, not for reals, not for realsies. No, it was just for fun because I like the Hunger Games, not the games itself, just the franchise and how Katniss became Mockingjay and ended it all. You know, so I am. I like because these are only fictional people and they're not real people fighting to the death. I like the idea of fake people. Fake, make sure you hear me right. Not in real life. I wouldn't watch them in real life, but in fake reality, I like seeing people fight and to the death and seeing who wins. I like games where you challenge each other and you find out who wins. I think it's kind of cool. Usually, it doesn't involve dying. Usually, it's just a simple game of tic tac toe or hangman or Candyland or normally something like that, and you're always excited to find out who wins. But anyway, maybe not the killing part, but I do like the concept of having like 24 people compete and seeing who wins. And then have the other idea where after 24 years of doing the games, you have those 24 winners go to the, and compete. I think that would have been a great concept. When I found out that the quarter quells were nothing like, when I first watched the Hunger Game movies, um, I thought I thought going into the sequels, not reading the books, just watching the movies, I thought that's what the quarter quell was. Every 25 years, they take the previous 24 winners and they fight to the death. So that in a total lifetime, you can only have like three winners: the first, second, and third quarter quell. But I was totally wrong. And Katniss obviously doesn't explain this in the movies. But when I went back to the book and I kind of spoiled myself by looking up book spoilers on the internet. I found out that in the passage of Catching Fire, she mentions that in the first quarter quell, it wasn't victors who went to the games. It was voted on. It was victors. It was tributes that were voted on. And then the 50th games, Haymage's games, it was double the tribute. So I was like, okay, it's nice so that every 25 years the game is different. But I mean, even when it's experienced killers and it's victors, that's a different game than just having people who've never fought before. But like having that same twist every 25 years, maybe that would be boring. I would not find it boring. I would like to see out of all the winners who would be the double winner, but like then again, I guess for the first quarter quell, you wouldn't have Lucy Gray, so and then Hamish wouldn't get to go in the games if you know if they did that for the 50th. So I mean, I guess the story wouldn't work if it was that way. But I mean, he could go when he's 17. He could go in the 51st games. I mean, I don't know why Suzanne Collins didn't do that. And again, Lucy Gray didn't have to vanish until after the quarter quell. Maybe here's an alternate universe. Say they did a victor's challenge in the 25th games, a victor's quell where of course you're not going to have perfectly 12 boys and 12 girls fight to the death, because who knows, you can't control who wins by the end of the game. Sometimes capital can control who wins, but most of the time you can't control if it's going to be a male or female that wins the games. So sometimes the for one set of 25 years male will dominate, and sometimes the woman will dominate, so you can't really have 12 boys and 12 girls. And so, and it breaks kind of some of the Hunger Game rules. The only reason they were able to do it for the 75th Hunger Games was because it wasn't the previous 24 winners. It was anyone who was alive from the first games to and you're bound to have at least 12 boys and 12 girls when there's like 75 games. But anyway, but yeah, in a 25-year period, not 75-year period, in a 25-year period, you obviously don't get that. And so anyway, um I would find it interesting, but I guess in order to make the story work and have Hamish fight in the 50th games and let Lucy disappear during the 10th instead of the 25th, I might have gotten a message. Let me see. Oh, 10 minutes ago, food just arrived. Sorry, guys. Um, grab your order, please. Contact. Okay. Sorry, I'm in a live stream right now. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, our food just got here. I ordered Olive Garden. Olive Garden's great. It has really good, rich food. But oh yeah, the quarter quells. So it's kind of funny because this is not a quarter quell. This is the first Hunger Games. Candace Everdeen from District 12 in the 74th games. Notice that the Capitol doesn't pay attention when she makes a perfect bullseye. Only when she misses do they pay attention. I'm kind of glad she hasn't shot the apple yet, but and I'm kind of glad she did because if she didn't, she might have gotten a low score given the fact they didn't pay attention to when she actually made a perfect bullseye. Anyway, Katniss is not happy. She's gonna shoot the apple out of the pig. I think a turkey would be better than a pig, don't you think? Oof, that definitely startled them. Let's hope she gets a good score out of that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you know what's funny? You know how Haymitch got a 1 in the Sunrise of the Reaping? Cat we never heard anyone get an actual 12. Katniss got 11, but we never heard anyone get an actual 12. Anyway. Nice shooting, sweetheart. Now, this is something that a lot of theories, and because I've been following a lot of people on YouTube, and this time, I'm not getting into this time. I'm not spoiling myself because I read Sunrise of the Reaping, and I've been watching a lot of theories on it. Notice that Haymitch, not in the books, but only in the movies, does he call Katniss sweetheart, and in the books, he calls Luella and Lulu sweetheart. So it's supposed to be kind of a reference that, when oh no, he actually he might have actually called Katniss sweetheart in the books. I'm not sure. But anyway, at least in the movie, he calls Katniss sweetheart almost all the time, I've noticed. And he comes in and he's watching his own tributes fight to the death, and never, there hasn't been a winner since Haymitch. So he's not that he's a bad mentor, but he's just been an unlucky one. He is kind of bad because he's drunk. But anyway, besides the point, when Katniss came along, Katniss kind of reminded him of Lulu, or Luella. Um, so anyway, so he calls her sweetheart. Anyway, by the way, I do know for a fact that they're having 2 different actors play Luella. One's playing Lulu, one's playing Luella, and in real life, she is kind of a body double. So, she's not twins, she's a complete stranger, but she almost looks with just a couple differences, she's mostly like the other actors, so that's gonna be cool to see in the movie. I would probably on at least on screen, we won't know the difference between the 2 actors, you know? I mean, but, knowing how the story goes, we'll know that the other actor left as soon as the carriage crashed. Anyway, and then there's also Maisie Lee and her twin sister, and, I think did they use it they must have used real life twins on that one. So anyway, cool double date gainers and cool double gainers. I mean, we've had that experience with Once Upon a Time when there was 2 Reginas and 2 of Cinderellas and 2 of everybody else, so double gainers in Sunrise of the Reaping. So anyway, what were we talking about? See, here's what's cool about the movie is that yes, you can't adapt everything from the book, but on the other hand, when you take so much out of when you leave so much out of the story in the book and only take a little out of it, you can leave enough room for things that are not in the book. So like these conversations between President Snow and Seneca Crane didn't happen in the book. I didn't notice, then this is mainly because I didn't read the books. I didn't notice anything that was just in the movie as far as Catching Fire and Mockingjay goes, but because I've read the first book as a school assignment and had to, read the book to get a good grade, um, I know the first movie, like, almost 100%, like, as the book, and so anyway, I know it's just in the movie, I know it's just in the book, and I know it's in both, and so anyway, so yes, in the book we're reading the Hunger Games from the perspective of Katniss, but in the movie we're kind of just the third person perspective. We're not the character's perspective or the antagonist perspective. We're just watching them survive in the games. But Katniss is still the main character, even if it's not through her lens of the movie. So anyway, because of this, we get to see some capital scenes and what's going on in the capital during this time. So some of the things that were not shown until Catching Fire were put into this film. mainly because we're not in Katniss's point of view. Um, Caesar Flickerman from the news is now hosting interviews live for the tributes that are about to fight to the death. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. There's Anna trying to make Katniss feel proud. Glimmer. There's Glimmer. That's the girl that almost kills Katniss later towards the end. When she's getting medicine for Peeta, and she's like, "We killed Rue." Close. Oh, there's Kato. 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 Oh, there's Thresh. There's Peeta and Katniss. Now there's Foxface. And Rue. Where's Rue? Where is she? Where's Rue? Show us Rue. Show us Rue. Show us Rue. There's Rue. She has a beautiful dress. She gives me the Cinderella vibes, especially from Once Upon a Time season 7. And the other Disney Cinderella that isn't the animated version. The other Disney Black Cinderella, African American. They have two Cinderellas, classics. Live action, of course, but not the remake of the cartoon. That's the 2015. The one I'm talking about was from the 90s. They made another Cinderella with African American. It's really good. See they're trying to show us in the movie here that Katniss is zoned out, and she didn't pay attention to anything Caesar said. So she kind of embarrassed herself. I was like, "What?" Yes, Katniss is a little nervous. I was just hoping I wouldn't burn to death. I know the movie so well. I know as much as a super fan would. I just can't say the same about the sequels. I'll try to quote the sequels, but I mean, I've seen the movie dozens of times enough to quote things from the sequels. But I could probably quote things that are in the book that are not in the movies, that are not in the first movie. And then, when it comes to the sequels, I won't be able to do that. But, going back to the books, I am pushing myself to, it doesn't matter how much I hate reading, I'm going to push myself to read all the books this time before Sunrise of the Reaping comes out. Remember, I've read Sunrise of the Reaping and the first book. So I've read the first and the last book, just not the ones in the middle. And I know, Sunrise of the Reaping is not technically the first book. I mean, the last book, but because it's a prequel. But you know what I mean. Between the first one that came out and the last one that came out, I read because I was really invested and interested in Hamage's story enough to read it. You know, and then I was forced to read the first one in high school. Now I know what you're saying. How come you're not interested in the rebellion? Well, Catching Fire is everyone's favorite, so you're right. That doesn't defeat that point. You're right. I should have read that. And it's probably understandable not to be interested in President Snow. So, but I did like the movie, Lucy Gray and everything. Katniss Everdeen just showed the fire on her dress, and oh yeah, and Caesar Flickerman is asking about Katniss's sister, and obviously Katniss is going to try to win for her. But anyway, so anyway, about the fourth though. So didn't celebrate on the 20 in 2025, sadly. But in 2026, I did a reaping for my family. 2027, how are we going to celebrate? We're going to react to Sunrise of the Reaping, which is the only film that we'll not be able to react to as we're doing this marathon. But we're doing it for the new film. You know, I know it's kind of crazy because, imagine you're having a birthday party and you don't show up to your own birthday party. That's horrible, right? That's what this feels like. this marathon of Hunger Games is only because Sunrise of the Reaping comes out the end of this year, the movie, you know? And so I don't know why I didn't think about doing a marathon for the book, but I've been as the years go by, I get more and more into the Hunger Games, and so I'm invested enough to do a marathon for the movie at least. So, and obviously, I was too busy doing my mission to do Songbirds and Snakes, so there's that. And then I didn't know about the Hunger Games when the originals came out. So anyway, that explains why we're not doing a marathon until now. But anyway, I do a lot. I do a long marathon, and I'm stretching it out to until the movie comes out. And in order to, between July 20th and the present, in order to stretch it out 18 weeks, you have to watch a movie every 3 weeks or so. Yay. Mhm. Is it there's silverware? Maybe not. Silverware? Oh, I forgot Malin doesn't like bread. That's funny. I have a sister who doesn't like bread. I ordered I ordered a meal for my sisters, and we were supposed to have 2 breadsticks each, but I forgot my Alan doesn't like bread, so I guess we get 3 between me and my other sister. So anyway, that was kind of funny. But anyway, yes, I ordered Olive Garden, and then so yeah. Yeah, I guess so I I'm a little repetitive, and I spoke too long about my fandom of the Hunger Games, longer than I would want to. But I hope I wasn't boring so far. Maybe hopefully I didn't cause you to just turn me off and watch the movie without my commentary. I'm sorry. It's just not a lot of people watched my Once Upon a Time ones, and the main feedback I got from it was that did too much of saying, "Oh, Peeta's doing this, Katniss is doing that." In Once Upon, well, except it was Once Upon a Time. So Emma was doing this, Regina was doing that. I kept just saying what was going on instead of actually saying what was going behind the scenes and stuff. And so anyway, I wanted to try to be better at commentary and not just talk about every single thing that's going on during the movie. So basically, because of this, now I feel like I'm just talking Hunger Games in general and not actually talking about the. Now I'm feeling like doing a little bit too much, not talking about what's going on. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm just crazy, but anyway, I was trying to make an improvement of just talking, not just talking about everything that's going on as we're watching it, but to actually say some cool things about the Hunger Games. But now I feel like I did a little bit too much cool and being, maybe it's mostly just the repetitiveness. But anyway, so they just finished their interviews, and Pete has a crush on Katniss. Great to sell on television, I guess. Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire. But anyway, I can't wait to react to Sunrise of the Reaping with you guys next July 4th. That will probably be fun. Give me a chance to watch the movie over and over again as much as I did with the other ones before we go live. So, oh yeah, as I was saying about the party, this is like hosting a birthday party, right? And and like the person whose birthday it is doesn't show up. Is that Sunrise of the Reaping? That's the whole reason we're doing this in the first place. And that's the one film we're not going to be able to react to. That's because it's in theaters, not on streaming. Even when it comes on streaming, I feel better just to wait on until July 4th. If they didn't give us that date, I would do it a lot sooner, as soon as it came out on streaming. But now I told you about the marathon. Now I told you about how I fell in love with the Hunger Games. So now trivia. Jennifer Lawrence is the main star of Katniss Everdeen, and her and the actor who plays Peeta Mellark, they're both returning for Sunrise of the Reaping epilogue. Same with the Woody Williams as Haymitch. He's returning for the epilogue as well. And so anyway, these characters are coming back for the epilogue. Um of Sunrise of the Reaping. So they're doing that in the film. They're not taking that out. They're going to do the epilogue in the film. That would be cool. At least that's something we know they're not going to take out. Now, I'm a little worried because I got so invested in Sunrise of the Reaping, and I've reread the book recently. Um, Unlike the other Hunger Game books that that I'm not reading till after the movie comes out, I'm now getting to the point where because I read this book first. Oh, and I guess I read the first Hunger Game book before I watched the movie, right? But like, I wasn't really like this as a kid. Now, as a full grown adult, matured after 6 year 6 years, yeah, because I'm 24, so 18, 24. Now that I'm more mature, I kind of feel like I'm the guy that's like, okay, now that I read Sunrise of the Reaping, I really hope they don't take certain parts I liked out of the movie. And like there were certain parts I liked in the book that I'm worried that they're gonna take out because they can't do the whole movie in 2.5 hours. Anyway, speaking of adaptations, you know how they split Mockingjay in half? You know, I'm on the opinion that they should have not done that because it's way too slow, and they because even I was bored when I first watched it on my 18th birthday. I was like, I only pushed myself to watch it just to see how it ended, and I didn't want to skip a movie, but I was bored regardless anyway, so I should have skipped it probably. But anyway, they spent way too much in the final rebellion, but whatever. Um, but I am on the opposite opinion for Songbirds and Snakes. There was so much that happened between President Snow and Lucy Gray that by the time President Snow went from mentor to peacekeeper, I felt like we were watching a different movie, and it should have been split in half. So kind of like Mockingjay Part One that covers from what I haven't read the book, but I've been told it's only the first. Remember how Suzanne Collins splits each book into three parts? Part one takes over part one and two of Mockingjay, and then part two of Mockingjay is part three. Um, so with that same similar, I can see Songbirds and Snakes part one and two. The PLSD, what the mentor and the let's see, wait, I don't know. Wait, hang on. I don't know what they're called. I'm not gonna look it up, but anyway, but mentor. So anyway, you know what I mean. The three I was trying to think of what the titles of those were. I think one is called The Mentor and one is called, The Peacekeeper, but I don't know what the first one's called. The Slaughter? I don't know. Anyway, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is pretty much establishing President Snow in the capital. His family's poor. He's trying to win the Blinter Prize, and he's coaching Lucy Gray into the Hunger Games. And then part 2 is the actual games. And then normally that's where the book ends, but part 3, in other Hunger Game books, that's how it ends. But in part 3, he becomes a peacekeeper. So anyway, the games don't take place at the end of the story, they take place in the middle. Anyway, not like there was interviews or a chariot race, back in the 10th game, so that's why things went faster. But anyway, I definitely would agree that part 1 and 2 should not be split in half. Like that should be one movie. So have President Snow mentor Lucy Gray, and then have the second half of the movie be the games. Just cover most of the book. But then when President Snow becomes a peacekeeper, save that for a part 2. Yes, I'm on the fence that just like the Mockingjay book, like part 1 and 2 and 3 should have been one movie, right? I think at least I would agree that Sunrise of the Songbirds and Snakes should not be split into 3. I think the first 2 parts should be one movie, but I don't think that third part should have been part of it. I think it should have been its own movie. And now, of course, that means you have to stretch it out more, and it'd be a slow movie. Yes, the first one would be fast, but the second one would be slow because but at least at the end of the first one, you're rooting for President Snow and you want to know how he becomes evil. So then you watch the second part. But I still think that even if it's too slow, it's better to be separated than one full movie because it was way too fast. Even for the ending, after he became a peacemaker, maybe the peacekeeper part was fine, but looking at it as a whole, that was a lot. I'm just saying they should have split it in half, but Mockingjay should have been one movie. The Songbirds and Snakes should have been two, but Mockingjay should have been one. You know, Haven't read Sunrise of the Reaping. I think it should be one movie as well. I hope it is. It should be. The games go all the way to the end of the book too. I don't think they would stop midway through the games. The only reason Mockingjay does it is because they didn't even have games in that one. There was no Hunger Games. President Coin did announce one, but they never came to fruition because Katniss killed her. Um, and then and then of course, at least with Songbirds and Snakes, the games are only just one part of the book. They're not the entire book. They're just in the middle section of it. So I mean, like, with the whole section of the book being after the games, that's why I'm saying it could be split into two. But anyway, everyone's getting ready because the games are about to start. Gale is just sitting in the woods because he doesn't want to watch. But anyway, the anyway, but Sunrise of the Reaping does not need to be split in half. I think that though, because so much happens in that, and I don't want that to be cut out of the movie. It should be a 3-hour Hunger Games film. Like most of our Hunger Games film, like how this one's 2 hours and 16 minutes. Most of our Hunger Games are going to be around 2.5 hours, right? I think Sunrise of the Reaping should hit the 3-hour mark. Try just to try to fit everything from the book into the movie. I know you have to cut some stuff out. Going, lyric by lyric, it's gonna take forever, and there's gonna be probably some haters. It's gonna ruin the movie. But there's just so much that I like about that book. Probably have to be 3 hours in order to keep everything that I like in it. At least all the parts that I like. There's probably some parts I would be okay to get rid of. But anyway, I'm looking forward to Sunrise the Reaping. I feel like it's going to be a Catching Fire vibe. So, like, how people were so excited for the first Hunger Games, but then they got more excited. Like, Firebird really exceeded past their expectations. Like, Hunger Games exceeded their expectations, but, they just hit it right on the dot. Firebird, Fire, Catching Fire was higher. It was better than the first games. The first one was weaker compared to the second one. Like the first one was probably like a 10 out of 10, right? And then Catching Fire was 11 out of 10. And then Mockingjay was like an 8 out of 10. It got worse. Like, yeah, maybe the first movie was a 9 out of 10. The second movie was 10 out of 10. And the third one was 8 out of 10. So, anyway, like, you get what I mean, right? And so I'm seeing that with the prequel trilogy. Songbirds and Snakes was great. I really liked it. I didn't really sympathize for Snow, but I really like Lucy Gray as the other main character. So I would really put it as a 9 out of 10. It was a decent Hunger Games film. It wasn't as bad as Mockingjay, right? But it wasn't as great as Catching Fire either. It just goes along the lines of the first film. And then, at least for me, I don't know about you, Sunrise of the Reaping, and this is what most opinions are online. Most opinions actually hate Songbirds and Snakes. I was one of the few that liked it. It's not an unpopular opinion, but not liking it is more common. But anyway, people on the flip side for Sunrise of the Reaping are liking it, and I only found like 2 haters online. Like literally, it's rare. Same with Catching Fire. So since those seem to be people's favorites, some people even considered Sunrise of the Reaping as their favorite over Catching Fire, and some say it's kind of a mixed fan base. It's a 50-50. Half of the people online say that Firebird is still way better, Sunrise of the Reaping is still way better, or they're tied. Like basically, there are a few mix of people who can't decide between Catching Fire and Sunrise. But that's because when they mentioned their review online, it was right after the book came out, and they didn't know what to think. But I'm sure that's what people still say. So I'm expecting Songbirds, and I'm like, not Songbirds. I've read Sunrise of the Reaping. As far as the book goes, I think it matches with Catching Fire. But I'm expecting the movie to do the same with the movie of Catching Fire as well. So anyway, I'm expecting it to be the favorite of the prequel trilogy, and I'm hoping that Suzanne Collins corrects her mistake because Mockingjay just wasn't the same without the games. I know they brought it into it, but that's what made it more interesting, you know. So anyway, just to see who was gonna make, like, obviously our main character is gonna win, but just to see who would come second place, it makes the game interesting. Anyway, uh, so yeah, because there was no games in Mockingjay, if they were, the only way I can see the prequel trilogy dropping from a 10 out of 10 to an 8, um, would be if they did one like, I would like to see a video I would like to see a movie on the Dark Days. Like, okay, now we're getting into the territory where I tell you what Hunger Games film I would like to see next and what book I would like to see next. I have 2 ideas. Some people like to say they want a Finnick and Annie's game, but I don't. I'm tired. I don't want any other tributes other than District 12, with a few minor exceptions. And so, anyway, because this whole entire franchise, we've been following District 12 victors, and because there was only 2 other people before Katniss, I feel like it'd ruin the franchise if we did Finnick and Annie. So anyway, wouldn't do those if I was Suzanne Collins, but I have an exception to this rule. I think we could have a Hunger Games movie without a main character from District 12. If it's the first quarter quell, because we have a movie on the second and the third, I figured maybe we could do one on the 25th games. I think because, like, again, Catching Fire was everyone's favorites, and Sunrise is the new favorite. And so it's like every time you do Quarter Quell, it becomes everyone's favorite. So I think if you want to end this franchise on a high note, yeah, I would stop. I would use the 25th Quarter Quell. You know, the first Quarter Quell. Um, on the other hand, just because I didn't like Mockingjay that much, it was still a good book. I mean, a good movie. I read the book. Still a good movie, and well, it has a good solid conclusion to it. So as far as a great start goes, I think one on the Dark Days would be great. Just like Mockingjay was. And I think I like the concept of I would like to see the concept of how the games came to be and how the Capitol and Rebellion happened, the first one, right? And how District 13 fell and got destroyed. I want to see that like almost as badly as the first Quarter Quell. And I think that would be my new favorite book besides Sunrise of the Reaping. I think Sunrise of the Reaping, I think it would be hard to beat story, but I think there's an exception to that being my favorite if they do one on either the first Quarter Quell or the Dark Days. But see, here's where I draw the line. I don't think they should make more prequels than there are originals. So since the Hunger Games is a trilogy, not as a movie. I know there's 4 movies, but just based on the books, since the Hunger Games is a trilogy, I don't want the prequels to outshadow that. So I think there should only be 3 prequels, and then Suzanne Collins should leave the franchise alone to kind of keep it good. She doesn't write anything for fan service. She only does things when she has something to say. I think all her messages have came clear. There's only one more message that she could possibly offer. Um, I looked it up once, and there's one that I found one piece of war that she hasn't, one piece of propaganda she hasn't covered yet. I can't remember what it was, but it led me into wanting a first quarter quell on it. I submitted a review to the fan, to Suzanne Collins fan email. I don't know if she read it, but anyway, it involves exploring this part of the propaganda and when the basically I don't remember what it was about, but what I was trying to say, because like again, Suzanne Collins doesn't make a book unless she has something to say, and here's what I have to say. I can't remember what I had to say before. I will admit um it blinked me. I was using a little bit of AI to help me come up with this concept, but I was coming up with the idea mostly on my own. It's just because I'm new to the Hunger Games fandom, I didn't want to do anything that contradicted the books, so I used AI to make sure I didn't contradict the books. So I was like, okay, if I decide to have this character do this, will it affect the book in any way? And AI would say yes or no. Anyway, so yes, I used AI as a tool to help me, but I can't. The most of the idea was mostly on my own. Anyway, there was a piece of war and propaganda that I thought of that could be explored, but so like if I was making a Hunger Games book, I would have something to say, but I don't know if it's something that Suzanne wants to say or I can't remember what it was though. I can't put it into words. But to kind of explain that maybe you know what I'm talking about. In the first quarter call, because everyone had to vote for their own tribute, because everyone had to vote for their own tributes, they had to, betray the other. Each district had to betray one another to vote for their children. District one, like for example, the career districts had to vote those who they would like to see, you know, fight to those from other districts fight to the death. Okay, sorry. everyone had to vote on tributes, you know, from other from their own and other districts. So it's like, like the career districts voting on people from District 12 that they would like to kill. And like that I think would be easy kills. And then you have people from District 12 who are voting on the people they hate the most for loving the capital. Anyway, it's the year that the districts turned on one another. That's all I know. And we don't give much about the first quarter quell, but from the context of the books and the movie, we know it's the one where the districts turn on one another and they become enemies until decades later with Haymitch and Katniss, right? So I think that would be good to explore. Plus, with Lucy Gray, we kind of know who invented the Hunger Games. It was Coriolanus Snow's father, and Keister High Bottom, you know, Dr. High Bottom, you know, and Coriolanus' dad, kind of came up with the concept together. And obviously, the dad is the one who submitted it to Dr. Gall, and the Dr. Haybottom was just joking. He didn't really want there to be a Hunger Games. But anyway, we know how the concept of the game started, but how did the concept of the quarter quells get invented? We also know that Dr. Gall was still alive for the first quarter quell. So I'd like to know how she died after that, and then I would like to know, anyway. And I can't remember what I was trying to say as far as propaganda, politics, and war goes in the Hunger Games. But anyway, and I'm not really that into politics either. But anyway, whatever I was trying to say, I find the first quarter quell perfect for that explanation. So anyway, that's why I wanted the 25th games. Um, now the Dark Days is just a fan concept. I didn't really have a message to go with that one, so I wrote a request to Suzanne Collins for that as well in her fan email. But that one, the Dark Days, doesn't really have a reason. It's pretty much the same reasons that were explored in Mockingjay. I just it was just out of fan service, and I know Suzanne Collins doesn't write for fan service, so the 25th quarter quells was in respect of having a message, just like Suzanne Collins, she doesn't write unless she has something she wants to say. That was under her respect. The Dark Days is more of just a fan service that I would like, especially since the first trilogy ended in a war. This prequel trilogy could end in a war too. But I'm trying to think. I'm not. This is not my opinion. I do think they could improve on their Mockingjay, book by making one on the first rebellion and making it a little better. You can still make a good Hunger Games movie without having a Hunger Games, I think. And so anyway, that's why I like that idea. And then ending by covering the 3 years of the Dark Days, and then have it end with have the final scene be the first Hunger Games. Anyway, go from right before the world collapsed to all the way to the first. Basically cover the history of North America and how Panem was formed and the first rebellion. Just do all that. But just to give a franchise a good start, just like you gave it a good end. It would be the same kind of concept as the Mockingjay, but only one difference: the districts don't win the war, and the Hunger Games start instead of end. So anyway, the life of a fallen. It's like finally Katniss was living the life of a victor at the end of Mockingjay. This is like living the life of a fallen tribute. It's like the complete opposite. It's like you see like a time when they lost the war versus when they won. I think it would pair well nice with the prequel, with the original trilogy. But the problem with that is that you know I'm not thinking of me. I think it would be better than Mockingjay, in my opinion, and I think it would end the franchise on a good note. But I'm thinking about everyone else, including those watching this live stream right now. Maybe you don't like the Dark Days. Maybe you don't want to see it. Everyone has the right to have their own opinion. From what I'm seeing out of most people online, most people did not did they like. It's not like hated Mockingjay. They just didn't like it as much as the other books. It was their least favorite. Like when you do a list of your favorite Hunger Games to your least favorite Hunger Games, even if it's against Mockingjay, and no, because people hated President Snow, right? They didn't want a prequel on this book. Um, they still consider Mockingjay even worse than that, and they put most people put Mockingjay at the bottom of their list. There are a few people, I will admit, there are people with an unpopular opinion of putting Mockingjay as second, or not second, but like second to last, because they hate Songbirds and Snakes more. There's kind of mixed reviews when it comes to Songbirds and Snakes. I'm on the end that it was better, but like everyone else, I think the first and the Hunger Games and the Quarter Quells are better than Mockingjay and Songbirds and Snakes. So I would put probably Mockingjay as last, as my least favorite, and then Songbirds and Snakes as my second. So I'm kind of with everyone there. But anyway, there are some people that hate Songbirds and Snakes more. Um, but like, yeah, Mockingjay is either because there's only 5 books. It's either fourth or fifth place. Not a single person puts Mockingjay in third or second or first place. It's not like their favorite. There are some people that there was a couple people I found that liked all the books equally and couldn't rank them. But like as far as those who could rank them, like Mockingjay was always towards the bottom, and both for books and movies. For movies, people like Mockingjay Part Two more than Part One because it had a good conclusion. But most of it was dragging. So anyway, I do fear that in respect of everyone's opinions and the popular in the public, the most popular opinion could possibly be the worst book of the series if they make one on the Dark Days based on what happened in Mockingjay. So I'm worried that if they make one on the Dark Days, it would end the franchise on a bad note. Not for me. I think it would end it on a good note, but based on the popular opinion and what everyone else might say. Everyone has the right to have their own opinion, but based on what everyone else might say, it might not end on a good note. I have some doubts on that. So, even though I like it as much as I like the first Quarter Quell, part of me, in respect to everyone else who loves the Hunger Games, thinks that maybe the first Quarter Quell would be better, especially since people are saying Sunrise is their favorite or Catching Fire is their favorite. So, it would be nice if there was a mixed opinions on the first Quarter Quell being their favorite as well. So anyway, I do think overall the first Quarter Quell is a better ending to the series than the Dark Days. But me as a person, no separate opinion. I think I like both ideas. Like I like both of them equally. But you can't do a book on both. I feel like the Hunger Games should not go on 7 books. I don't think there should be 4 prequels. I think there should only be 3 because Suzanne Collins works in trilogies here. So I think there should only be one more prequel. If they hadn't done a book on Hamish's games, that's probably what I would have done. Done one on the first Quarter Quell and then one on the Dark Days. That was my opinion before Sunrise of the Reaping came out. But then when it came out, and don't get me wrong, um, I'm glad we get to know more about Hamish's games and stuff. And it's the second Quarter Quell too. I was going to probably, if they didn't do Hamish's games, I was going to say that too. I was going to say that as a book idea for the future anyway. So there have always been 2 ideas, regardless. But let me say, for example, I did not ask for a President Snow flashback. I didn't need Songbirds and Snakes. So, and I did get into the Hunger Games just before the book came out. So when I was reading the first, I heard about Songbirds and Snakes, during my time reading the first book of the Hunger Games in high school during my senior year. So, I was only just barely getting into the Hunger Games, but I didn't look up the franchise until after I graduated high school. So when I found out Songbirds and Snakes was coming out in a few weeks from after graduation, I was like, oh, so good, they're making another book. What a coincidence! I'm getting into the Hunger Games right before they make a prequel about it. Because otherwise, if I would have gotten into the Hunger Games back when the original trilogy aired, I would have had to wait 10 years, 2010, 2020 for the next book. And I'm glad I don't have to wait that long. So there are benefits of being late to the franchise, and you don't have to wait as long for new books. Because you see, after I was introduced to the Hunger Games, even though I had to wait 5 years for Sunrise of the Reaping, at least I was distracted by my mission and it didn't feel that long. Because now, whenever there is a prequel, and however long it takes for Suzanne Collins to make it, because see, now with my mission out of the way and I've been introduced to the Hunger Games, I'm forced to wait for however long it takes her to make another book now. So, see, there is that regret that maybe I should have avoided the Hunger Games a little bit longer, but not like I had a choice in high school. So, anyway, I'm just glad I got introduced to it when I did, and I'm glad I know about it now. But anyway, I do think that, that I think we should have one on the first quarter quell. Um, Even though there won't be a District 12 winner, willing to be okay with breaking the franchise for that because anyway, I just like the whole concept of quarter quells. Again, disappointed that they just won't do a Victor Quell every 25 years, but I understand. You gotta make sure it's two boys and two girls. Well, you have to make sure it's a boy and girl from each district. There has to be equal amount of boys and girls. So that's not always going to be the case if you do it every 24, years. So I like it. Kind of does make it more interesting to know that it's not always going to be a Victor Quell every quarter of a century. So because of that, you don't know what's going to happen. And like versus a Victor Quill every 25 years, you would know, and it would make it less interesting. I would not want to. I will tell you this: if everything was just a Victor Quill, like I thought when I first read the games, I would have I would have not been interested in the first quarter Quill. But the fact that I was wrong and it was different, it was a different twist each time, makes me interested in it. Anyway, um, but yeah, I don't want there to be more than 3 prequels. So, as much as I equally love The Dark Days and the First Quarter Quell, the one factor that makes me decide between the two is the fact that, well, the last time they did The Dark Days, the general public did not like Mockingjay that much. I mean, it was good, they liked it, but it was the weakest. And I don't want the third book of the prequel trilogy to be the weakest. What made me think, okay, maybe the Quarter Quell is better because that was the best of each trilogy. Now, the original trilogy only had one quarter quell in it, so it feels off. And maybe if Minnick and Annie's story would be better, because it feels off to have two quarter quells in one trilogy. But honestly, like I said, not interested in Finnick or Annie or anything like that, or Joanna. Um, I think that having two quarter quells is better than doing another war book. Like I think like I do I do think this is not my opinion, but just on what I observed of the fan base. I think it wasn't a mistake. It was a great writing by Suzanne Collins, but I think it was slightly it was slightly the franchise was slightly injured when she came out with Mockingjay because she risked to make a Hunger Games book without a Hunger Games. And so, that's why people are not as invested in the third book of the original trilogy than they are with the first two. And so, anyway, not that it was bad, and not that it actually injured the franchise in any way. It just injured it a little bit. So, if we want to keep things on a high note with the prequel trilogy, I think the 25th games would be the best bet between that and the Dark Days. I'm willing to bypass the random 10th Hunger Games with Lucy Gray because it gives us a backstory on the antagonist, President Snow. Katniss is the main protagonist of the original trilogy, but Snow is the main antagonist. And so we got Katniss's backstory. It was fair to probably get President Snow's. But I think that's the only time we should pick a random year. The only other prequels we should be getting is Quarter Quells. Because after the 25th games, just like I said with Finnick and Annie, it just feels weird to not do one. It just feels weird. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. It just feels weird not to do a District 12 winner. It though, it's only I only want a I only want a final quarter quell book mainly because I like the quarter quell things, no matter if it's a District 12 victor or not. That's why I think 25th games is fine. And there's nothing that some people think that there was no winner, and there's nothing in the book saying that there was for the 25th quarter quell. So first quarter quell. So maybe we can bypass the trend of District 12 by having no winner and having no protagonist from a district. Well, so then that way, and it's weird not having a main character in a story. But if we have to pick someone from the capital, obviously, just like you did with President Snow, um, that way you don't know who's going to win, and even if there is no winner, um, it doesn't break because obviously, if there has to be a winner, it's not gonna be from District 12. So I think one way to avoid this is to not focus on a District 12 tribute, just focused on the game in general and, not have anyone in the arena be a main character. Because even though President Snow was the main character and we saw things from a capital's perspective already, Lucy Gray was still kind of the second main character. Let's not have any tributes be part of the main cast. So then that way we don't know who's going to win, but we can still watch the game from a distance and watch people kill each other. Is my point. In conclusion, we should we should in conclusion either have a winner but don't have them be the main character, or have no because of the District 12s we've been having lately. Um, to not break that rule with a different victor from a different district. Why not just how about we have no one win, everyone dies, and then people forget about the game, the first quarter quell game. Like for Dr. Gall erases everyone's memory about it or something, just like they did with Lucy Gray. I don't know, something like that. Maybe do something like that, and I will accept that kind of a movie and book. But other than that, because there are no more District 12 winners, other than that, I think the final book should, first of all, there should be no more Hunger Game books, but just to complete the prequel trilogy, there shouldn't be there shouldn't be another one based on the games because we already seen all our District 12 winners. And so anyway, but yeah, I also at the same time because I know I just said before that again, if the movie's not interesting with the story is not interesting without the games, and I'm also saying the story is not interesting without a District 12 winner, so, with the exception of the first quarter quell, of course. So that's why I'm saying, yes, you need to have the games be part of the story, but no, it shouldn't be based on another district's tribute. And so, how do you do that when you've already done Haymitch, Lucy Gray, and Katniss, and they are the only District 12 winners? How do you do that? Well, obviously you can't do the Dark Days, even though I would like to see a book on that. You can't do the Dark Days because there is no games, right? And assuming that everyone died in the first quarter quell, um, eh, you can't do any other Hunger Games because it involves another person winning. So I guess it would have to be the first quarter quell, and it's pretty much the winning victim. That's the only one that you could do where possibly everyone dies and there, and there's no other district winners. Like I think we don't have to have a District 12 winner. I do agree with that. We don't have to have a District 12 winner, but it's either a District 12 winner or no winners. Let me know if you think my opinion's weird. But anyway, I just want one on the first quarter quell. That's all my wishes. If that's what she does next, I don't want to see her do anything else. Like, yeah. Like I just want one more book to complete the prequel trilogy and then we're done. Like I understand. Don't do a sequel trilogy. Don't be like Star Wars. But I would be one of those guys to defend the prequels. Since the first 6 Star Wars movies were great, the first 6 Hunger Game movies will be great. But let's not do a sequel trilogy on the Hunger Games. So anyway, ah, that explains all my lore on the Hunger Games. I almost have nothing else to say except I was gonna give you trivia, and let me be honest, I meant to look that up before the live stream, but I got distracted with other life stuff, and then I realized it was 6:30 and I hadn't had dinner, so I ordered Olive Garden, and then I was like, by the time I did that, I'm like, okay, I don't have time to look up trivia. I just got to start. I don't have trivia, but now that I spent most of this movie talking about my all the things I liked about the Hunger Games and how I came across it and what I like to see next from this series, after spending the whole movie doing that and then nitpicking some of the things that have been going on so far in the first movie, I'm not gonna repeat myself when we watch the sequels. So now that I spent my whole entire movie here introducing the marathon I'm doing and talking about talking about doing commentary on all the movies. Now that you know what's going on here, my fandom of the Hunger Games, we don't have to spend a whole movie talking about it. I can I'll plan trivia for the next one. As you know, I'm planning. If you watched my prep video from earlier, I'm planning these 3 weeks apart. So the next live stream will be on August 29th. I think is 3 weeks from now. So at the end of the month, we will react to Catching Fire, and I'll make sure to have trivia ready for then. I'll do trivia for both movies since we didn't do it for this one. Um. Anyway, so yes, I guess since I'm now deciding, I was gonna look up trivia by the time I was done talking at this point. But now that I'm deciding not to do trivia, not to look it up as we're watching the movie, I only have two more things left to do: eat my food, and then show you my Hunger Games collection before this movie ends. I'm kind of trying to wait for the credits, so then that way you guys cannot watch the movie while I'm showing you, because it's going to be hard to like watch the movie and then look at the live stream at the same time. I mean, like, I mean, yes, I'm giving commentary, but you don't have to look at me, because I want you to watch the movie. Make sure you've seen the movie before too, so that I'm not bothering you. But I want you to watch the movie. There's no reason to really look at me because I'm just sitting here the whole time. You just need to hear my voice, so you can hear me and watch the movie at the same time. It's kind of hard to hear the movie though, because I'm probably dominating the movie. It depending on what volume you have my live stream at and what volume you have the movie at. But anyway, if you have it at an equal pace, then that should be fine. But it's hard to have both eyes on your movie screen and your computer screen and your live stream screen. So, oh man, okay. I'm just saying things that don't matter right now. But anyway, point is, point is, I don't want to show you my Hunger Games collection if you're busy watching the movie. So we'll try to wait for the credits. But I have to eat my Olive Gardens, so Rue just died. It's kind of sad. Katniss is singing to her. She was singing this to Prim when I was talking, so now I can be quiet. I think there's commentary, despite me being over repetitive and talking too much about one thing. Mm, I think it is better because I could have spent the movie saying, "Aw, Katniss thinks Peeta betrayed her. Aw, look at poor Rue. They're teaming up now." No, that ally alliance did not last long. Instead of saying things like that, or being like, in the book, after the interview, Katniss pushes Peeta over a vase and he cuts himself. In the movie, he just nails him against the wall. Like I said, I know the differences pretty well between the movie and the book when it comes to the first movie, but not to the sequels. So that's going to be harder to give commentary on, especially since I spent most of this movie talking about how I got into the Hunger Games. There's not going to be much comparisons to talk about when we get to the second movie. So maybe I should have saved all this talking for the second movie, but oh well. What's done is done. Don't mind me, I'm just eating. They keep the live stream on in case I'm talking. Um, there's the whole peace symbol. Puts her two fingers up. Oh, District 11 is not happy that Root died. They're kind of starting to rebel. How sad. Sending love letters. Okay, just sending you. Peacekeepers trying to keep them under control. See, when I did my Once Upon a Time marathon, this is what I was doing the whole time, just saying what was going on. Seneca Crane walking to the podium, seeing District 11 rebel. Countess is in depression. Hamish is trying to convince Seneca Crane to keep Katniss alive. He's a good mentor, trying to keep his girl alive. But keep in mind, this is not Luella. This is just Katniss. But you did see her when she was a baby, so that's why. Because she reminds you of Lenore Dove, and you met her as a baby. You kind of grown to love her to keep her alive by convincing people to sponsor her and convincing Seneca Crane to not kill her. Mm-hmm. Sure you do. Presents. No, you're gonna kill him soon. Katniss is like, what? They never made a rule change like this before. Now, here's something Seneca Crane could have done to save his life here. He just announced that there could be two winners from the same district, but here's what he could do. When he debunks it later, when Katniss and Peter are threatening to do a Romeo and Juliet on them, he could say, "Stop! Stop! Stop! Peeta, walk that way. Katniss, walk this way. Throw a bar on Peeta." But then Katniss might want to hurry and eat the berries once they do that. Somehow move it. Try maybe here's what Crane could do: try to get the berries away from Katniss and stop her from trying to kill herself. Bomb Peeta, then quickly grab a hovercraft, arrest Katniss, knock her out so she doesn't kill herself, lock her in a hospital. I mean, I'm not trying to be Team Capital here. I don't think they need their victory. I think the Hunger Games have gone on long enough. Peeta said this in Sunrise. 50 years is enough. 75 is definitely enough. Or 74 in this case. But you know what I mean. It goes on for 75 years. But anyway, because they don't end up stopping the games. But until the next one. But you know, because we know President Snow is going to execute Seneca Crane, by locking him in a room, not really executing him by hanging him, but locking him in a room and him being forced to either starve to death or eat the berries. Anyway, I mean, I would rather die than follow the Capitol's control, but if, let's say I was trying to stay alive and survive, kind of like President Snow was doing in Songbirds and Snakes. Let's say if I was an evil dictator or something, I think a smart move would not to just be scared and let them both win, because President Snow's not going to like that. You're going to be executed, but you could just do it in a way where if Katniss and Peter are unwilling to kill each other, just find a way to separate them and then bomb one of them. In which case, I'd probably let Katniss win, so that even if they don't both win together, she could still start a rebellion. Snow might catch on to that and still execute me like Seneca Crane, but that's what I would do. In President Snow's shoes, and obviously I wouldn't want a war, so I guess I would kill Katniss and keep Peeta alive, so we can go back to the bakery and stuff. Anyway, that'd be a smart way to keep the games going for 100 years. Actually, 100 years would have been a great milestone to stop the games on, because it's the century mark, not the quarter century. 50th is also a great one, but the fact that they failed at ending the games, I don't know. 75 years is a great anniversary, but I compare that to like the 25th. It's not as great as the 50th half century or full century mark. It's just another quarter. But anyway, it's the third quarter, which I guess is higher than the first, but it doesn't give me the same level of excitement, as what a half century or full century would give me. 25 years, okay. 150 years, great. And then 100 years, no, 50 years, great. 100 years, fantastically, 100% perfect, fantastic. Like, I don't know what word to say. No, I'd say, okay, 25 years, okay. 50 years, good. And 100 years, great! 75 years, okay. Yeah, it just feels the same thing as a 25 years. So, anyway. I know it's a better anniversary than 25, but I don't know. You get my memo, right? It just doesn't feel that way. Anyway. But, yeah, know what? Hunger Games are really cruel, and I'm glad that Suzanne Collins decided that it would only last to 75 years. For all I know, she could have had Katniss time be the 99th Hunger Games, the 100th. But, if this was realistic, it wouldn't be such as random as that, So, I'm glad, I guess, she's smart and she knows what she's doing. I still don't think that 74 Hunger Games is random. Is random either. I think that's being too specific on a fictional franchise. I think if this happened in real life, the rebellion to stop it would be either a lot sooner or more like around 63 or 64. It wouldn't be somewhere around a quarter quell. It's so specific, because the reason why ending the games around the quarter quell is bad is because it's so specific. It's like saying, oh, if it's not a quarter quell, we can't have a rebellion. It's like saying District 13, oh, we love the games when it's not the quarter quell, but we don't when it is. Like, anyway, that's just weird. That's what it feels like. So, if it was more realistic and random, it would be like a random number. Anyway. But no, I like what Suzanne Collins does. She knows what she's doing. She could have chosen 100 years. She could have chosen to start the original trilogy a lot later, make the games last a whole century. She could have chosen a random 64 years or whatever. But, she just chose 75. It's okay. It's her universe. It's not, I'm not going to nitpick at that. I wouldn't like the games early. I would have preferred the games end earlier anyway. But anyway. Katniss is going to risk her own life to get me Peeta some medicine. Sneak it away while he's asleep. Bad idea. Anyway, in the book, they cut this out, but in the book, he mentioned the first of all, the speaker says, "We know you're declining our invitation. Don't decline it. You'll regret it." Um, and then Peeta also mentions that, "Oh, don't go, or I will scream in the woods and have Kato find us." That's why he knocked her out. She knocked him out and waited until he fell asleep to sneak away, and knocked him out with some nightlock berries, or not nightlock because those kill you, but they're kind of berries that keep you asleep. There's the girl from the interviews I talked about. She tries to kill Katniss at this moment. She's from Kato's district. She's part of responsible. She's part of the pack that killed Rue. She didn't kill Rue, but she's part of the pack that did. She's the career pack. See, I am mentioning a few things that are going on. Now, I will admit, I made the opposite decision here. I'm not mentioning enough, but in Once Upon a Time, I mentioned too much. So that's an improvement from Once Upon a Time, at least. Not just talking about what's going on every second of the movie, talking about like other things like the actors and how I came into the Hunger Games. And anyway, I still have food to eat, so excuse me for a second. I ate all my breadsticks and ate all my soup, but I still have pasta. After I eat this pasta, all we have left is the movie. Sorry, I've been a lot of silent lately, but I just got dinner, so maybe this was a bad night. Or I should have waited longer before. Maybe I should wait to order Olive Garden next week when I'm not doing the movie. Again, in the book, Thresh is surprised that Katniss knew Rue, and would have almost killed Katniss if she hadn't said that she was an ally. hmm Thresh, in both movie and the book though, Thresh did give Katniss a favor and spared her life. Peeta would have gone worse, yes. Man, I'm about to choke on fettuccine Alfredo, chicken Alfredo. Hang on. I don't have water with me. I don't want to leave the screen. I'm just gonna let that take some time to go through my throat. I know I gotta eat slower. I realized when I watch other commentaries on YouTube, not first time reactors, but commentaries that do similar things that I do. It's pretty rare that it's not common on YouTube, but there are other people who tell you to get your own copy of the movie and we all push play at the same time. There's always usually at least two people, and I think that's what keeps a good conversation going is when you have two people taking turns answering questions, going back and forth, and having a live chat, which I do, but not a lot of people chat in it. The point is, even without a live chat, you can make it interesting when you have a partner with you, versus when you're talking to yourself. It kind of doesn't get as interesting because you're not talking, you're not really talking to anyone. You're just I'm talking to you guys, but it feels like you're talking to yourself. This is a live stream, and none of you guys are here with me physically. Well, we've had times in the past where the live stream stopped working, and luckily I had a backup. But you know, if imagine the backup didn't work either, I'd really be talking to myself without realizing it. It's much better to have another person, so then that way you don't have to dominate the entire time, and they can keep it interesting if you're being awkward, which Probably am. We had two people when Malin was here. He did Back to the Future with us. Foxface just died. Now it's just Kato and Thresh, and then they can win. We're gonna send mugs after them. In the in the book, they're supposed to be like the dead tributes, but they don't do that for the movie. But that would be creepy. This always jump scares me because it gets quiet for too long, and you don't know when it's gonna happen. Rush died. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's the finale now. It's just them and Kato. See, that always jump scares me. Mm-hmm. It's the finale. Sorry, I have not been talking. My voice is tired, and I'm trying to tell. If my talking has been annoying to you, but yet you didn't silence me, thank you. If you haven't done that, you at least get to kind of enjoy the movie without my talking for a second. But like, why should you? I'm expecting you to have. I'm expecting you to have seen this before watching the commentary. Even if you've seen it dozens of times, it's still great to enjoy without murmuring in the background. If I wasn't eating, there was a point in my head I was thinking maybe I should look up trivia because I don't have anything else to say right now. I mentioned Jennifer Lawrence though, and how it got sometimes raping. Yeah, Katniss and him are coming back. All three actors, not just the characters, the actors who play those characters. 'Cause, 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 'c Now that I'm finally finishing my food, and the movie's almost over, I don't think we'll look up trivia until the next film. Finish my food just before Katniss wins. She's Kato's convincing Katniss just that him and Peeta can go down and she can win. But killing is personal to Katniss. Even if Kato's a bad guy, he doesn't want to kill Kato, but she'll do anything to keep Kato alive. See, all he wants to do is bring pride to his district. He has no loved ones at home. He doesn't care whether he gets pride to his district or not. So that's what makes Katniss decide to kill Kato because he doesn't care if he survives this or not. He doesn't have anyone who loves him. He just wants to bring pride to his district. Well, well, because of Katniss's arrow, they won. Peeta was able to break free from his arms and then knock him into the lion's den, or not the lion's den, the mug's den. However, he still wouldn't die right away. So to save him from a slow death, Katniss just put him out of his misery with an arrow. Now they won. And there was the cannon shot. Just right after I finished eating. We'll try to do trivia for both movies when we watch the next one. Sorry, I was I guess a little unprepared. Prepared to start the live stream, yay! Prepared to watch the movie except when it was time to get it set up. Yay! I had to log. I had to go back into Netflix. Luckily, I was already logged in and had my logged in saved, but I still had to like type in Netflix.com and then type in into the search bar. Sorry, I guess it's an understatement to say I was prepared. I was not prepared for the live stream. I was like all the other days. I was looking forward to it, and I was like, too bad it's not 7 o'clock on a Saturday yet. But just be when it became that Saturday, I was not ready. So see, they just reboot the role of two victors, and so now Peeta and Katniss have to try to kill each other. But Katniss is like, no, we're just gonna kill. We're gonna kill. We're just going to um. We're just gonna have to commit suicide together because they don't need to have their victor. And of course, the Capitol gets scared and doesn't know what to do in this situation, but I just get them separated and then use the bomb to kill one of them. But, oh well. Seneca Crane is off to his death for not knowing what to do and just letting them both win. They can't stand not having a winner though, which I guess defeats my theory. In the 25th games, you have to have a winner because we see at this point they don't. Wait, but this is after the first quarter quell, so maybe it's due to the events of the first quarter quell that they don't want to ever go without a victor again. Maybe there was something that happened in the first quarter quell that made them think, no, no, we have to have a victor. Like as President Snow says, a little hope is hopeful, but a lot of hope. Two people winning is dangerous. Oh, well. There's a whole chapter where Katniss is watching Peeta go to the hospital and get restrained, and she doesn't like it. She gets trapped in a room for a while, but anyway, they didn't put that in the movie. Obviously, I'm okay with that. the movie needs to come to an end. It's a little over 2 hours at this point, so they kind of have to pass through the final chapters. The last couple chapters of the book, they kind of have to skim over so that they can get to the credits. This was not in the book. This was in the second movie. This was in the second book, but it wasn't in the first. Seneca Crane being locked and having forced to commit suicide by eating those berries or starve to death. He's locked in that room. There's no choice but to die. But anyway, Seneca Crane knows what he got himself into. This is their farewell interviews. They didn't fully skim over the ending. And Peeta's trying to tell them I mean, not Peeta, Hamish is trying to tell them that this was a serious crime that Katniss committed, and he's trying to help her get through it. Anyway, obviously, Caesar's like, wait, you know how Peeta said, this cannot be, this cannot be good, because Peeta is in love with Katniss, and she came to the she came with him through the reaping, and so winning doesn't really help him. Well, it technically did because they allowed two winners. Caesar didn't see that coming, and he never expected to say victors with an S. They just have one crown. Like literally, why not split the crown in half? Like honestly, that's what they did in the book. President Snow just crowns Katniss. That's it. He doesn't crown Peeta. So and it must be very hard to talk to President Snow like that because he's so evil and what he made her do in the games. Mm. Peeta doesn't want to forget, even though it was trauma and horror that they went through. Happy ending. Not really, but it's a good ending for the first book. Everyone's cheering for them for winning. Yay! They just got back home to celebrate their victory, and now they're rich. They're millionaires. They're billionaires. They're literally, they have a luxury and mansions now. They don't have to live poor anymore. President Snow's like, I don't like this. He's not liking it one bit. To be continued, right? He's going to do something about it, but we won't find out till the next movie. Credits are rolling. Time to show off my collection. No, I would have done trivia if I wasn't eating earlier, but by the time I finished eating, the finale had just finished, and I was like, it's only a few minutes left. We could save it for the next movie. Hmm. Sorry, I'm getting my DVDs out. The Hunger Games, the back cover. So all the credits are plain. See? Hey, let me try to get this out. It's a small collection. We can get through it before the credits come. Here. Okay, here's this. Here. This was the barcode. You can't see it. But anyway, it's how I got my movies digitally. And there's this. Too. Okay, so here's the movies. And here it is: The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, Mockingjay Part 2. And each disc has two movies on it. So, Hunger Games, okay. Hunger Games, and Catching Fire on this disc. Yeah, right here. And then this is Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 right here. So this one's technically the one that covers one book. This one covers two because this. So that's the DVDs. And then what came inside the DVDs is this Mockingjay necklace. See? It's a little necklace. It doesn't really, it's not a necklace. You can't really put it over your head, but it can fit around your neck if you were to like, let me see, you were like somehow unscrew this little pendant. It says the Hunger Games on it. See? Tiny. Can't tell. But what's on the back? Let me see. What does this say on the back? It's just as Lionsgate, the company that owns the movies. But it's a Mockingjay pin. It says on the back that it's LGR. Mockingjay symbol, right? Came with the movie. Comes in this. Now I have to try to put this away. Now, when I got the DVD, I didn't know it came with the. It already came with the Mockingjay pin. So I decided to also buy a Mockingjay pin before opening my DVD collection. I had two Mockingjay pins because of this. I'll show you the other one in a minute. The DVD case has two slots, not for two case covers, but one for the DVD and then one for this. A slot to put this in. If I could fit it in here. Oh, come on. See? Doo-doo. Doo-doo. So in here, you have the DVD and the Mockingjay pin. Feels like this DVD case is really wide. It does definitely feel like there's two cases in here. One for two movies and one for the other two, but no, all and they combined each set of two movies into one disc and two discs into one case, and what's covering the other slot is the Mockingjay pin, not another DVD case. There's my Hunger Games thing and QR code stuff. Now let me show you my Songbirds and Snakes. This is what I got in 2024 after it finished releasing in theaters. So this was more recent. These, no, I got these at the same time actually. This I remember getting this one later. Like this one I got at Christmas after my mission. This one was more like just a month later when I was waiting for it because it was still in theaters when I got the first four on DVD. The Songbirds and Snakes. Unlike the other one that has like four discs in it, this one. I mean, no, this one had two discs in it. Sorry, unlike this one that has two discs, one case, and a Mockingjay pin. This has only one. Well, I thought it had only one disc because it's only one movie, but I think the reason why I have two in here is if you look at the symbols, one is Blu-ray and one is DVD. So one's for the Blu-ray player, one's for the DVD player. They probably both have bonus content. Sometimes movies come with a bonus disc, but these are not bonus discs. Look, this is DVD and then Blu-ray. So that's why there's two in here. So there's no Mockingjay pin. So that's what makes this one different. No Mockingjay pin. No Mockingjay pin. And if there was one, it wouldn't be a Mockingjay. It would be a songbird and a snake, right? I've seen all the posters for the Hunger Games. I know each one is different. I mean, all the Katniss Everdeen ones have a Mockingjay, but it's a little different. Each one's a little different. And then I told you I had another Mockingjay pin. Like it says the Hunger Games on it. It's upside down. Mockingjay pin. Has a picture of Katniss and the fire in the background. The Mockingjay on fire in the background. See? So, see? And yeah, it's a Mockingjay pin. I've taken it out before. And whoops. See? I took it out. And I pin it to my shirt. I've done that before. I'm not going to pin it to the shirt. But I've done it. I've worn a Mockingjay pin when it's a Hunger Game parties. So, yes, I'm kind of a big fan now, you can say. I have to put it back because the reason why I didn't throw this away is because it has Katniss Everdeen on it. Mockingjay on fire. So, this is Hunger Games Mockingjay pin. Anything crop replica jewelry. Oh, I put it on the wrong side, huh? Whoops. Let's see. I put it in and out of so many times it's getting worn out. There we go. There we go. See? So there's my other Mockingjay pen. And then what I've done more recently is the books. They all came in this package because I got them right after my mission. And, obviously, even if the movie wasn't out, the books were already out, for Songbirds and Snakes. So this one, see if you get the Mockingjay pen for Songbirds and Snakes, it would look more like this. Not like, not like, not like this one. See, this is part one. This is part two. And, normally there's like a clock in the background, but it's part two symbol. This is When the Bird's Free, part three. But, since the book is split in half, this is the first half of the movie. And, oh, it doesn't have the second half. The second half is the circle disappears and the bird is actually free. So it's not too different. And the bird is actually more straight and not sideways. But anyway, and then you got the Songbirds and Snakes one. Now, again, Sunrise of the Reaping as a book hadn't came out yet, right? This was like a year and a half before it came out. So I could have waited for that book to release before getting the whole collection, because then that way it wouldn't be Songbirds and Snakes themed. It would be Sunrise of the Reaping themed. This box is specifically made for just the first four books. So my Sunrise of the Reaping copy cannot fit in here, but oh well. I didn't know there was going to be another book. I just wanted the whole franchise to put on my shelf. So, I mean, I'm glad I waited, you know, when I first got into it before my mission. But now, now that we have Sunrise of the Reaping, I guess I wish I waited longer. But even if Sunrise of the Reaping doesn't fit in here, I'm still putting it like next on my bookshelf. I'm putting it like right next to this one. So, credits have just finished. So we have to wrap up our commentary now, but I've showed you my whole Hunger Games collection now. I didn't show you the actual books. I showed you the bookcase. I showed you the DVDs. I showed you the Mockingjay pins. That's about all I have. It's a small Hunger Games collection. Now I just got to show you the books that came with the franchise. So here's book one. See, I read the book. Here's book two. See, boom, boom. My sister's actually reading this right now. I have to give it back to her. I told her I needed it for this video. Here's book three. Nice, huh? None of them are hardcovers. They're all soft covers right now. And then Songbirds and Snakes, which has way more pages. Look, Songbirds and Snakes. See, look. Ta-da! Whole collection. Sunrise of the Reaping. Listen to the audio twice. Followed along in the book. So now this can go together, right? Ooh, ooh. It can't fit. It was not meant to carry this book. I have it in blue. The soft cover is blue, not purple. But anyway, one more thing. This is my audio version of Sunrise of the Reaping. I open it carefully. See, look. It was easy. I already knew what was going to happen. But now I'm going to read the other books for the first time. See you in 3 weeks for Catching Fire. The Hunger Games saga continues. We'll watch the next movie in 3 weeks, August 29th. But until then, have a great rest of your summer. Have a great rest of your August. Without further ado, I'm just going to end it here. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.